I want to talk to you about the crossroads that we're at.
In June 2010, Glenn Beck spent an entire hour-long show, then on Fox News Channel, encouraging his audience to read The Road to Serfdom.
This book was like Mike Tyson in his prime, right hook to socialism in Western Europe and in the United States. But the influence didn't stop there. It has inspired political and economic leaders for decades since. Most famously, you know who loved this book? Ronald Reagan.
Caldwell says people listened.
The next day, it was #1 on Amazon.com, and it stayed there for, I think, 10 days and stayed in the top 100 for a couple of months. It was like an Oprah moment for Fritz Hayek.
Hayek had been dead for more than 15 years, and just like that, his book was flying off the shelves. These days, saying you're reading Hayek or others from the Austrian School of Economics is almost obligatory for conservative politicians. In a recent debate, Ron Paul cited the Austrian school. This summer, Michelle Bachmann said she lies on the beach reading Hayek's mentor, Ludwig von Mises. And when asked at a campaign event in Iowa to name some books that have shaped him, Rick Perry gave a shout-out to The Road to Serfdom.
Friedrich Hayek's book is one that had an impact on me understanding that John Maynard Keynes absolutely knew nothing about economics.
Hayek and the more influential and well-known Keynes feuded over economic theory and the proper role of government for years. Western governments generally bought into with well-timed public spending. You could level out the dips in the business cycle. Recently, though, Hayek has been making a comeback. Freshman Congressman Justin Amash, a Republican from Michigan, can say he was reading Hayek before Hayek was cool.
I've got a framed portrait of Hayek on my wall.
In his Capitol Hill office, Amash has framed photos of about half a dozen Austrian economists, but the one of Hayek is big, almost rock poster big.
And then I also have the signature of F.A. Hayek, and I have that framed.
Amash, who was elected with Tea Party backing, discovered Hayek's work 5 years ago and has devoured his books and essays since. He says Hayek's ideas have informed just about all of his votes in the House.
A lot of legislators and Congress think they can decide how society functions from these offices here, and they don't really have the dispersed knowledge that society has to make those kind of decisions.
Economic thinks he knows why so many are citing Hayek.
He's got the intellectual creds. He's not someone who can be dismissed by people on the other side, in this case by people on the left, as a flake, as someone who was just ranting and raving, as someone who failed to understand the great nuances of the market, politics.
But he also believes Hayek and The Road to Serfdom are misunderstood, and he suspects some of the big names claiming to read Hayek may not actually be reading his dense academic texts. He says The Road to Serfdom wasn't written as a political tract, and in fact, Hayek scholar Bruce Caldwell says Hayek was concerned when he arrived in America and discovered his book was being championed by partisans.
He was surprised and dismayed that it had been taken in a party spirit, that the intent of this book was not to endorse one party or the other, it was to make certain points about the feasibility of certain institutional arrangements that responsible people were promoting.
Caldwell thinks Hayek would be pleased with all of the attention his work is getting, even if some of it is extremely partisan. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
And tomorrow our series concludes with a look at Englishman John Maynard Keynes, whose ideas influenced efforts to get out of the Great Depression. It's Morning Edition from NPR News.
This is 90.9 WBUR. Ahead in 6 minutes on Morning Edition, the contrasting images being painted by the prosecution and the defense of accused terrorist Rezwan Firdaus of Ashland. Forecast says clouds and showers today, maybe some showers, highs in the mid-60s, tonight lows in the 40s. Steady rain likely tomorrow in the 50s on Wednesday. It's mild in Boston this morning, 60 degrees right now.
We're funded by you, our listeners, and by Bank of America, lending and investing to help make opportunity possible for the communities and people who call Massachusetts home. bankofamerica.com/Boston. Direct Tire and Auto Service, Barry Steinberg and his team thank clients for 38 years of business. tires, brakes, and complete auto repair at directtire.com. And Dragon speech recognition software from Nuance, a gift idea for business professionals to create documents, emails, and manage schedules all by speaking. Get Dragon.com. All the money in half the time was just the beginning. I'm Sasha Pfeiffer. WBUR is committed to raising all the money in half the time, every time. And every time starts with our December fundraiser. WBUR needs to raise more than $1 million. And for the first time ever, get half the money before the on-air fundraiser begins. So open that letter we sent you. Give online at WBUR.org. We can do this together.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Jean Cochran. Hundreds of New York City police in riot gear raided Zuccotti Park after midnight, evicting the Occupy Wall Street protesters.
Leave the park! You will be subject to arrest!
And about 70 people were arrested as officers cleared the park that had been occupied for some 2 months. Then sanitation crews moved in to clean it. The protesters have been told they can come back, but without their sleeping bags, tarps, and tents. An anti-Wall Street protest is planned today for the Berkeley campus of the University of California. Police cleared the tent city in front of Oakland City Hall yesterday morning, but NPR's Richard Gonzalez reports that protesters are trying to reestablish their encampment.
Even after police cleared out the Occupy Oakland protesters, city officials said the downtown plaza is a public space and has to be available to people engaged in peaceful protests. But officials said they would draw the line at overnight lodging. In the early evening, the occupiers rallied at a local library and then marched back to the site of their former camp. After more speeches, the crowd thinned and demonstrators did not attempt to reestablish their